Hey there, you're looking kind of cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out all my other socials. Enjoy. A sharp sound broke the quiet of the early morning. A letter from the government came through the mail slot. The paper slid across the wooden floor, making the quiet apartment feel even more silent. The smell of fresh coffee filled the room. This was very different from the serious letter that had arrived. There was a red seal on the letter. It was from the Department of Administrative Affairs. Mr. Morrison's hands shook as he opened the envelope. He found a letter inside with a clear message. It said, "You must come to Facility 47 Beta this week for Operation Renaissance, Phase 3. If you do not follow these orders, you will face the punishments in Governance Code 2847. Mr. Morrison felt nervous as he read the letter. He found it hard to breathe, as if he had just woken from a bad dream. He ran his hand through his short blonde hair, feeling worried about what he had to do. The Feminization Act had become law 6 months ago after a lot of arguing. It was made to fix what leaders called serious gender imbalances in the modern workforce. The processing center stood like a fortress of glass and steel in the government district. Ellis parked his sedan and checked his reflection in the rearview mirror one last time. His familiar face stared back, square jaw shadowed with stubble, blue eyes beneath straight blonde brows. He wore his usual uniform of faded jeans and a green flannel shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows. Name? The receptionist behind the bulletproof glass didn't look up from her screen. Ellis Morrison. I have an appointment. She slid a clipboard through the slot. Fill this out. Take a seat. Someone will call you. The waiting room hummed with fluorescent anxiety. Others sat in scattered chairs, some reading pamphlets titled Your New Life, A Guide to Successful Transition. Ellis checked boxes on medical history forms, signed waivers he barely read. His hands left damp prints on the pen. Morrison, Ellis? A woman in a white coat emerged from a side door. Her badge read, Dr. Chen. Follow me. The hallway stretched endlessly, doors marked with numbers and letters that meant nothing to outsiders. Dr. Chen's heels clicked a steady rhythm on the polished floor. She led him to room 12A, gestured to a chair. The process is straightforward, she began, pulling up files on her tablet. Today we'll complete your initial assessment, begin hormone therapy, and issue your transitional wardrobe. Your new identity documents will be processed within 48 hours. My new identity? Reagan Morrison. The name was selected by our algorithm based on phonetic similarity and cultural appropriateness. She tapped the screen. Now let's discuss the medical protocol. The examination room smelled of antiseptic and latex. Ellis changed into a hospital gown, submitted to blood draws and measurements. Dr. Chen explained each injection, the timeline of changes, the irreversible nature of the treatment. The first dose is the strongest. You'll feel different within hours. The needle pierced skin. Warmth spread from the injection site, racing through veins like liquid fire. Ellis gripped the exam table's edge. Perfectly normal reaction. Now, let's get you to wardrobe. The wardrobe department occupied an entire floor, racks of clothes stretched in neat rows, organized by size and color. A consultant named Patricia approached with a measuring tape draped around her neck. Arms up, she instructed, wrapping the tape around Ellis's chest. The hormones will change your measurements, but we'll start with what fits now. She pulled items with practiced efficiency. A pink silk blouse appeared first, its pearl buttons catching the light. Next came a black pencil skirt, hem falling just below the knee. Nude pantyhose in sealed packaging. A pair of black pumps with modest 2-inch heels. Standard office attire, Patricia explained, adding a beige leather purse to the pile. You'll receive a full wardrobe delivered to your residence tomorrow. Dresses, skirts, blouses, appropriate undergarments. No exceptions to the dress code are permitted. In the changing room, Ellis stared at the clothes. The person in the mirror looked like a stranger attempting costume. The pink blouse clung to shoulders too broad, the skirt awkward over hips not yet curved. The pantyhose felt alien against legs accustomed to denim. Don't forget the makeup, Patricia called through the door. She passed a small bag underneath. Red lipstick is mandatory. Instructions are included. The lipstick tube felt heavy. Ellis uncapped it, faced the mirror. The red was bright as blood against pale lips. Unsteady hands traced the unfamiliar contours. "Your appointment card," Dr. Chen said when Ellis emerged. "Weekly hormone injections, mandatory counseling sessions. Your work reassignment is listed on the back." The card read, Reagan Morrison, Secretary, Department of Transportation, Building C, Floor 9. The drive home passed in a haze. Every shift of the pedals reminded Ellis of the skirt's restriction, the unfamiliar slide of nylon. Other drivers didn't spare a second glance at the figure behind the wheel. Just another person following the new laws. The apartment door closed with finality. Ellis, no, Reagan now, the documents were clear, stood in the entryway, purse clutched in manicured hands. The hormone cocktail pulsed through her system, already beginning its work. She could feel it in the sensitivity of her skin, the strange lightness in her limbs. The next morning arrived with a convoy of delivery trucks. Box after box filled the living room. Patricia hadn't exaggerated about the wardrobe. Dresses in every shade appropriate for office wear: navy, burgundy, forest green, charcoal gray. Blouses in cream and white and soft pastels. Skirts of varying lengths, all within regulation. Rows of heels from sensible pumps to strappy sandals. Reagan unpacked mechanically, hanging each item in the closet that had once held flannel and denim. The old clothes had been collected during the night, per regulation. No trace of Ellis's wardrobe remained. The bathroom mirror reflected changes already beginning. Skin seemed softer, facial features starting their subtle shift. Reagan applied the red lipstick with growing steadiness, brushed out hair that seemed longer, though logic said that was impossible. Building C loomed gray against the morning sky. Reagan parked in the employee section, took a breath, stepped out in her navy dress and matching pumps. The walk to the entrance stretched forever, heels clicking on concrete. Other employees streamed past, barely noticing another figure in regulation attire. "You must be Reagan!" The office manager, a woman named Denise, greeted her at the 9th floor reception. "I'll show you to your desk." The secretarial pool occupied a vast open floor plan. Desks in neat rows, each with its computer, phone, filing system. Reagan's space sat near the window, a small mercy. Denise explained the phone system, the filing protocols, the coffee schedule. "You'll support the deputy directors on this floor. They'll email their requirements. Questions?" Reagan shook her head. The chair required adjustment to accommodate the skirt, knees pressed together. The computer booted up with her new login credentials, R. Morrison 47. Everything official, everything permanent. Days blurred into weeks. The hormone injections continued their transformation. Reagan's body softened, curved, reformed itself according to the medication's design. Mornings meant selecting from the mandated wardrobe, applying the required makeup, styling hair that grew with surprising speed. The office routine settled into predictability. Answer phones with the practiced feminine lilt the voice coach had taught. Type memos for executives who called her sweetheart and doll. File reports in towering cabinets that required careful balance in heels. Fetch coffee, make copies, smile at appropriate intervals. "Reagan, could you stay late tonight?" Director Phillips leaned against her desk, his coffee breath wafting down. "Need these reports formatted by morning." She nodded, fingers already moving across the keyboard. Overtime meant additional wages, and the apartment rent hadn't adjusted for her reduced salary. Secretary pay was significantly less than her previous position in data analysis, but the Feminization Act didn't account for such disparities. The sun set beyond the office windows, casting long shadows across empty desks. Reagan typed in the glow of her monitor, shoulders aching from hunching in the uncomfortable chair. Her feet had long since gone numb in the required heels. Policy prohibited their removal during work hours. "Still here?" A janitor pushed his cart past, offering a sympathetic smile. "You new transfers work too hard." "Just finishing up," Reagan replied, voice now naturally pitched in its higher register. The hormones had completed their work on her vocal cords weeks ago. The apartment welcomed her near midnight. Reagan kicked off the heels at the door, rubbed feeling back into her feet. The refrigerator held leftover salad and half a bottle of white wine. She ate standing at the counter, too tired to set the table for one. The mirror in the bedroom reflected a stranger who had become familiar. Blonde hair now fell past her shoulders in soft waves, maintained with products that cluttered the bathroom counter. The face had shifted, cheekbones higher, jaw softer, lips fuller even without the mandatory red coating. The body beneath the dress curved in ways that still surprised her. Fuller hips, defined waist, breasts that required proper support. Reagan hung the navy dress carefully, selected tomorrow's outfit. A burgundy skirt suit waited on its hanger, paired with a cream blouse. Always appropriate, always regulation. The closet held nothing else. Weeks became months. The office rhythm never varied. Reagan learned which executives preferred their coffee black, which ones expected personal errands disguised as professional tasks. She perfected the art of walking quickly in heels, of sitting properly in short skirts, of deflecting casual touches with practiced grace. "You're adjusting well," Dr. Chen observed during a mandatory checkup. "Blood work shows optimal hormone levels. Any concerns?" Reagan shook her head. What was there to say? The law was the law. The changes were permanent. The life she'd known had been efficiently erased and replaced with this carefully regulated existence. Excellent. Remember, your quarterly evaluation is next week. Maintain compliance and there won't be any issues. Compliance meant the red lipstick every morning. Compliance meant the skirts and dresses and heels. Compliance meant answering to Reagan, smiling at Reagan, being Reagan every moment of every day. The alternative wasn't specified in the documentation, but the implications were clear enough. The secretarial pool had its own dynamics. The other women, some born, some made like Reagan, formed loose alliances based on desk proximity and shared supervisors. Lunch hours meant salads in the break room, gossip about executives, complaints about the dress code's restrictions. "At least we get health care," said Marcy from 2 desks over. She'd been there 3 years, her story's a roadmap of what to expect. Better than the factories. Reagan nodded, picked at her mandated salad. The Feminization Act included dietary guidelines to maintain appropriate figures. Salads for lunch, lean proteins for dinner, limited calories to fit the office wardrobe that never expanded sizes. "Phillips is the worst," another secretary added. "Hands like an octopus. But HR won't do anything. Says it's harmless." They all knew harmless had been redefined. Harmless meant comments about their appearance. Harmless meant requests to fetch things from low shelves. Harmless meant 100 small indignities wrapped in professional language. Reagan's phone buzzed. Director Phillips needed his presentation formatted, again. She returned to her desk, heels clicking the familiar pattern. The formatting would take hours, but overtime was overtime. The rent was due next week. The apartment had become a refuge of sorts. Reagan had rearranged the furniture, added plants to the windows, hung curtains that softened the harsh streetlight. The second bedroom served as storage for the endless boxes of regulation clothes. Even with a full closet, the overflow required space. Evenings meant maintaining the required appearance. Hair treatments to keep the blonde waves glossy. Skincare routines to preserve the hormone-softened complexion. Manicures every 2 weeks, natural polish only, per regulation. The bathroom had transformed into a salon, products covering every surface. The woman in the mirror bore no resemblance to the person who'd received that manila envelope. Reagan studied her reflection, searching for traces of who she'd been. But Ellis had been efficiently erased, replaced by this carefully constructed identity. Even the bone structure had shifted, hormones reshaping the very foundation of her face. "Morrison, my office." Director Phillips stood at her desk, expecting immediate compliance. Reagan saved her work, followed him down the hallway. His office sprawled across a corner of the floor, windows offering views of the city. She'd been here before, taking dictation, filing reports, enduring his evaluating gaze. "Sit." He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Reagan sat carefully, smoothing her green dress over her thighs. The chair was deliberately low, forcing her to look up at him. A power play as old as offices themselves. "Your quarterly evaluation was satisfactory," he began, flipping through papers he probably hadn't read. "Typing speed adequate, filing system acceptable, appearance maintained to standard. Thank you, sir. However," he leaned back, fingers steepled, "I think you could benefit from additional responsibilities. My previous secretary handled more personal tasks, calendar management, expense reports, occasional evening events. The implications hung heavy between them. Evening events meant cocktail dresses and forced smiles. Personal tasks meant blurred boundaries. But the evaluation held her future: salary increases, continued employment, avoided penalties. "I'm happy to expand my duties, sir." His smile reminded her of predators. "Excellent. There's a client dinner Thursday. Black cocktail dress, arrive by 6 to prepare materials." Back at her desk, Reagan's hands trembled slightly as she marked her calendar. The other secretaries offered sympathetic glances. They all knew what additional responsibilities meant. Thursday arrived too quickly. Reagan selected the black cocktail dress from her wardrobe, its hem shorter than office regulations, but appropriate for evening events. Higher heels, darker lipstick, hair pinned in an elegant twist. The mirror reflected someone who looked expensive, polished, untouchable. The illusion mattered more than the reality. The restaurant buzzed with business conversations and clinking glasses. Phillips introduced her as "my assistant Reagan," his hand proprietarily on her lower back. She smiled, shook hands, remembered names and drink orders. The clients, all men, all evaluating, treated her like decoration. "Fetch another bottle of the Merlot," Phillips instructed, not looking at her. Reagan navigated the crowded restaurant in her heels, signaled the sommelier, ensured the wine arrived at the perfect temperature. She took notes when instructed, laughed at jokes that weren't funny, deflected wandering hands with practiced grace. "You did well," Phillips said afterward, the valet bringing his car. "I'll expect the expense report by morning." Reagan caught a cab home, the city lights blurring past windows. Her feet screamed in the stiletto heels, the dress suddenly too tight, too short, too everything. In the apartment, she peeled off the costume of compliance, stood under hot water until her skin turned pink. The expense report waited on her computer screen the next morning. Reagan itemized every receipt, formatted every column, submitted it before Phillips arrived. Her regular duties accumulated while she'd been playing hostess. The inbox overflowed with demands from other executives, each marked urgent. "Long night?" Marcy asked, noting the concealer under Reagan's eyes. "Client dinner?" Marcy's expression said everything. They'd all been to client dinners. They all knew the unspoken requirements, the performances expected, the boundaries pushed. The days developed a numbing sameness. Wake, apply the mask of makeup, select from the regulated wardrobe, commute in uncomfortable shoes, type and file and smile, return home to an empty apartment, repeat. The hormones had completed their work, leaving Reagan in a body that felt simultaneously foreign and familiar. Her hair had grown past her shoulder blades, requiring regular salon appointments to maintain the professional waves. The red lipstick had become automatic, applied without thought each morning. The heels felt natural now, her gait adjusted to their demands. Even the skirts and dresses had become routine, their restrictions incorporated into every movement. Morrison, conference room. Director Johnson from the 3rd floor stood at her desk, impatience radiating from his posture. Reagan followed, notepad in hand. The conference room held a dozen executives, all male, all staring as she entered. She found a seat at the side table designated for support staff, crossed her legs carefully in the yellow dress. "We need complete transcription," Johnson announced. "Every word." For 2 hours, Reagan's fingers flew across the notepad, capturing the rapid-fire discussion of budgets and projections. Her hand cramped, but stopping wasn't an option. The executives debated millions, while she worried about making rent on a secretary's salary. "Type that up immediately," Johnson ordered as the meeting concluded. "Email to all participants within the hour." Reagan rushed back to her desk, heels clicking urgently on the tile. The transcription would take at least 90 minutes, but deadlines were non-negotiable. She typed with mechanical precision, forcing her tired brain to recall every acronym and figure. Still here? The janitor had become a familiar evening presence. You should get overtime for this. Salary, Reagan replied without looking up. Overtime isn't authorized for secretarial positions. He shook his head, pushed his cart toward the next section. They both knew the system's inequalities, but knowing and changing were different things. The email sent at 7:47 p.m., 13 minutes under deadline. Reagan's shoulders ached from hunching over the keyboard. Her eyes burned from staring at the screen. But the work was done, properly formatted, professionally submitted. The apartment's silence greeted her like an old friend. Reagan shed the yellow dress, hung it carefully with the others. Her closet looked like a rainbow of professional appropriateness. Every color acceptable for office wear. Nothing that might draw unwanted attention or violate regulations. She ate dinner standing at the counter again, too tired to pretend at domestic normalcy. The television droned in the background, news anchors discussing the Feminization Act's success rates. Statistics scrolled across the screen. Workforce gender balance achieved, productivity measures stable, compliance rates at 97%. Reagan wondered about the other 3%. Her phone buzzed. An email from HR reminded all transitioned employees of their mandatory counseling session. Reagan marked her calendar, another appointment in an endless series. The counseling sessions followed a script. Are you adjusting well? Any concerns about your new role? Remember that compliance ensures continued employment. The counselor, Dr. Martinez, maintained an office designed to soothe. Soft colors, comfortable chairs, tissue boxes strategically placed. Reagan had learned to provide the expected responses, to smile at the right moments, to assure everyone that the transition was progressing smoothly. How are you finding the workplace environment? Dr. Martinez asked, pen poised over her notepad. Everyone has been professional, Reagan replied, the standard answer. Mentioning Philip's wandering hands or Johnson's unreasonable demands would only complicate things. And the physical changes? Any discomfort? The hormones worked as expected. Another safe response. The body dysphoria, the midnight moments of confusion, the dreams where she woke expecting a different reflection, those stayed locked away. Excellent. You're a model example of successful transition. The word successful had been redefined too. Success meant compliance. Success meant silence. Success meant becoming exactly what the system required, nothing more or less. Back at the office, Reagan's desk had accumulated another pile of work. The executive seemed to generate paper through sheer force of will. She sorted, filed, typed, answered phones with the same practiced greeting hundreds of times. Reagan, I need travel arrangements. Director Williams loomed over her desk, expectant. Chicago conference next week? Make sure the hotel has a gym. She nodded, already pulling up travel sites. Booking travel meant remembering preferences. Aisle seats for Phillips, morning flights for Johnson, particular hotel chains for Williams. The details mattered more than the deadlines. And book yourself a ticket, Williams added. I'll need someone to handle materials. Another conference, another performance. Reagan added her name to the reservation, selected adjoining rooms as expected. The company credit card covered expenses, but not the emotional toll of constant vigilance. Lucky you, Marcy commented. Chicago's nice this time of year. Reagan managed a smile. Someone has to carry the presentation boards. They both knew it meant more than that. Conference travel meant cocktail hours and client dinners, meant being decorative and useful in equal measure, meant navigating hotel corridors in regulation heels while juggling laptop bags and portfolios. The week passed in preparation. Reagan formatted presentations, created information packets, confirmed reservations twice. Her wardrobe selection required careful consideration, professional for day sessions, appropriate cocktail dresses for evening events, everything fitting in regulation luggage. The morning of departure arrived gray and drizzling. Reagan dressed in her burgundy suit, the jacket tailored to her transformed figure. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a professional chignon, red lipstick perfect despite the early hour. The airport shuttle waited outside her building. Williams met her at the gate, his suit wrinkled from the security line. He handed her his laptop bag without comment, expecting her to manage both their carry-ons. Reagan balanced the bags with practiced ease, her heels clicking on the concourse tile. The flight passed in familiar discomfort. Middle seat, Williams spreading into her space, typing emails while she reviewed his presentation notes. The flight attendant offered drinks with a sympathetic smile, recognizing another woman managing an executive's demands. Chicago's skyline emerged through gray clouds. The hotel lobby gleamed with marble and brass, conference attendees already gathering in clusters. Reagan checked them in, collected room keys, ensured the meeting room was properly arranged. Presentations start at 2, Williams announced. Have everything ready by 1:30. Her hotel room connected to his through a shared door that locked from both sides. Reagan tested her lock twice, then unpacked efficiently. The burgundy suit would work for the afternoon session. The navy cocktail dress waited for evening. The conference room filled with executives, a sea of dark suits and power ties. Reagan arranged materials at the side table, connected laptops to projectors, ensured water glasses stayed filled. During Williams' presentation, she advanced his slides on cue, handed him documents at precisely the right moments. Excellent support, one client commented during the break. She's very efficient. Williams preened as if he'd trained her himself. Reagan smiled, refilled coffee cups, pretended not to hear their evaluation of her appearance, disguised as professional commentary. Evening meant the navy cocktail dress, hair loosened into waves, heels lifted from professional to elegant. The hotel ballroom transformed into a networking maze. Reagan shadowed Williams, mental notepad recording names and connections. Fetch me a scotch, Williams instructed. Neat, you know how I like it. She navigated the bar crowd, ordered his drink and a club soda for herself. Alcohol and vigilance didn't mix. The bartender, another woman in service, shared a knowing look as she handed over the glasses. Is this your assistant? A client had appeared at Williams's elbow, eyes tracking Reagan's return. Very polished. The conversation turned to her as if she weren't standing there. Comments about professionalism mixed with thinly veiled appreciation for her appearance. Reagan stood silent, drink steady in her hand, smile fixed in place. Reagan handles all my scheduling, Williams said, proprietary hand on her elbow. Couldn't function without her. The truth in that statement tasted bitter as the scotch she'd never drink. These men couldn't function without the army of secretaries, assistants, and support staff that smoothed their paths, but acknowledging that would disturb the careful balance. I should review tomorrow's agenda, Reagan said during a lull. If you'll excuse me. She escaped to the business center, heels clicking on marble. The empty room offered blessed quiet. Reagan pulled up the agenda on her tablet, made notes for timing, confirmed catering orders. Work provided structure, purpose, a reason to avoid the networking that felt increasingly like display. Hiding. Another woman entered, her green dress marking her as support staff. Can't blame you, it's a zoo out there. Just preparing for tomorrow. Reagan recognized her from registration. Another secretary, another conscript in heels and regulation attire. I'm Dana, work for the Boston office. Reagan, Los Angeles. They shared the exhausted camaraderie of their position. Dana pulled up a chair, kicked off her heels with a sigh. They compared notes on their executives, their travel demands, the constant performance required. 3 more days of this, Dana said. Then back to the regular office circus. Reagan nodded. The office seemed almost peaceful compared to conference intensity. At least there, the boundaries were familiar, the routines established. Here, every interaction required heightened awareness. Her phone buzzed. Williams wanted her back in the ballroom. Reagan slipped her heels back on, said goodbye to Dana, returned to the fray. Williams had gathered a larger group, all expecting her to remember their names and drink orders. The night stretched endlessly. Reagan fetched drinks, took mental notes, deflected increasingly bold comments as alcohol loosened professional facades. Her feet went numb in the heels, but standing still wasn't an option. Motion meant purpose, meant avoiding corners where conversations turned personal. One more round, Williams announced near midnight. Reagan, could you? She was already moving toward the bar. The The bartender had William's scotch ready before she asked. They'd developed their own system over the evening, wordless communication between service workers. "Last call," the bartender murmured. "Thank God." Reagan distributed the final drinks, watched the executives toast another successful day. Success for them meant closed deals and expanded networks. For her, it meant surviving another evening without incident. "Excellent work today," Williams said as they waited for the elevator. "Same time tomorrow." Her room welcomed her with silence. Reagan locked the connecting door, collapsed on the bed fully dressed. The navy cocktail dress would need cleaning. Tomorrow required fresh armor. The shower washed away makeup and hairspray, but not the feeling of being constantly observed. Reagan stood under the hot water, letting it pound the tension from her shoulders. Her body had settled into its new form. Curves where angles used to be, softness where hardness once defined her. The hormones had done their work completely, efficiently, permanently. She dried her hair, now long enough to take serious time. The blonde waves fell past her shoulders, framing a face she'd learned to recognize. High cheekbones, full lips, eyes that had somehow shifted from masculine intensity to feminine warmth. The transformation was complete, irreversible, absolute. The next morning arrived too soon. Reagan selected the gray dress, applied the mandatory red lipstick, styled her hair into professional waves. The conference waited, another day of presentations and networking, of being useful and decorative in carefully measured doses. Williams was already in the breakfast room, surrounded by clients. Reagan joined the group, accepted coffee, nibbled approved portions while the men discussed market projections. She took notes when indicated, smiled at appropriate intervals, existed as efficiently as possible. "We'll need the Baker files for this afternoon," Williams announced. "Reagan, can you access those remotely?" She nodded, already mentally calculating the logistics. The files were on the company server, but accessing them required navigating IT security from a hotel business center. Another task added to the endless list. The morning sessions blurred together. Reagan managed 3 presentations, ensured smooth transitions, kept water glasses filled, and executives happy. During breaks, she rushed to the business center, fought with remote access, printed documents that emerged slightly skewed. "These numbers look off," Johnson from accounting had appeared beside her. "Are you sure you pulled the right files?" Reagan double-checked, confirmed the data, weathered his skepticism with practiced patience. The numbers were correct. His inability to read them wasn't her fault. But saying so would violate the unspoken rules. Lunch meant another salad, eaten quickly at the side table, while executives enjoyed full meals. The afternoon stretched with more presentations, more note-taking, more invisible labor that kept everything running. Reagan's feet throbbed in her heels, but sitting wasn't an option when materials needed distributing. "Conference dinner tonight," Williams reminded her. "The emerald dress?" She nodded, already dreading another evening of performance. The emerald dress was cut lower than she preferred, but it met regulations for formal events. Everything always met regulations, staying within carefully defined boundaries of appropriate femininity. Her phone buzzed with messages from the Los Angeles office. Other executives wanted reports, updates, immediate responses to non-urgent requests. Reagan typed replies between sessions, balancing multiple demands with practiced efficiency. "You're popular!" Dana appeared during a break, her yellow dress bright against the conference room's beige walls. "Just the usual fires." Reagan sent another email, promised a report by Monday, wondered when she'd find time to write it. "Want to grab dinner together? Skip the official thing?" The temptation pulled strong. An evening of normal conversation, shoes kicked off under a restaurant table, no performance required. But Williams expected her presence, and expectations carried the weight of continued employment. "I can't" required attendance. Dana's expression showed understanding. They all had required attendance, required smiles, required compliance with systems that demanded everything while acknowledging nothing. The emerald dress fit perfectly, as all regulation clothing did. Reagan styled her hair in an elegant sweep, applied makeup with expert precision. The mirror reflected someone who looked expensive, confident, untouchable. The armor was complete, even if it was made of silk and careful styling. The conference dinner occupied the hotel's main restaurant. Round tables draped in white, centerpieces of roses and baby's breath, executives in dark suits accompanied by women in jewel-toned dresses. Reagan found her place at William's table, between him and a client whose name she'd memorized. "You look lovely," the client said, eyes lingering too long. "Williams is lucky to have such dedicated support." "Thank you." The required response, delivered with the required smile. Reagan unfolded her napkin, prepared for another evening of deflection disguised as professionalism. Conversation flowed around her. Deals discussed over appetizers, partnerships negotiated between courses. Reagan ate small portions, stayed alert to William's needs, contributed only when directly asked. Her opinions on market trends didn't matter here, only her ability to remember names and fetch forgotten documents. "Reagan, could you get the Morrison projections from my room?" Williams handed her his key card without looking away from his conversation. "Third folder in my briefcase." She excused herself, grateful for the escape. The elevator ride provided moments of solitude. Williams's room was a mirror of hers but larger, scattered with the detritus of executive travel. His briefcase yielded the folder after some searching. The return journey took longer, Reagan stopping in the ladies' room to refresh lipstick and gather strength. Her reflection looked tired beneath the careful makeup. 2 more days, then back to the familiar office routine. "Perfect timing," Williams said as she returned. "We were just discussing the quarterly targets." Reagan handed him the folder, resumed her seat, picked at the dessert that had appeared in her absence. The conversation had shifted to golf, a safer topic that required no input from her. "Does your assistant play?" someone asked Williams, as if she weren't sitting right there. "Reagan's more of an indoor girl," Williams replied, chuckling at his own joke. "Keeps my files in better order than my golf bag." Polite laughter rippled around the table. Reagan smiled, played the part, counted the minutes until escape. Her feet had passed through numbness into active pain, the emerald dress's structured bodice restricting full breaths. "Nightcap in the bar?" The suggestion came as plates were cleared. Williams agreed for both of them. The bar hummed with conference energy, groups clustered around small tables. Reagan perched on a high stool, the emerald dress riding up despite her efforts. Williams ordered his usual scotch and a white wine she hadn't requested. "You've done well this week," he said, unusual acknowledgement in his voice. The Chicago team was impressed. "Thank you." Reagan sipped the wine she didn't want, felt it burn past the permanent lump in her throat. There might be opportunities here. Expansion into the Midwest market. Would need someone reliable to manage the administrative side. The implied offer hung between them. Chicago meant escape from Los Angeles, from Phillips and his wandering hands, from the familiar cage, but it also meant starting over. New executives with new demands, the same performance in a different city. "I'm happy in my current position," Reagan replied carefully. Truth was irrelevant. The response was what mattered. Williams studied her over his scotch. "Think about it. The offer stands." They sat in companionable silence, or what passed for it. Around them, deals were struck over whiskey, partnerships forged in alcohol-hazed conversation. Reagan nursed her wine, watched the clock behind the bar, waited for acceptable departure time. "I should review tomorrow's schedule," she said finally. "Early start." Williams waved dismissal, already scanning for more important company. Reagan escaped to the elevator, shed the emerald dress, stood under hot water until her skin turned pink. Tomorrow would bring more of the same, but each day checked off meant closer to home. The final conference day dawned bright and cold. Reagan dressed in her burgundy suit, grateful for the jacket's coverage after 2 evenings of cocktail dresses. Her feet protested the heels, but flats weren't regulation for business formal. She'd learned to push through discomfort, to smile despite pain. Williams had arranged breakfast meetings, requiring her presence by 7 a.m. Reagan managed coffee service for 6 executives, distributed agendas, took notes while nibbling approved portions of fruit. The men debated market strategies while she calculated typing time for the inevitable follow-up reports. Final presentations start at 9, Williams announced. Reagan, ensure the conference room has proper setup. She excused herself, grateful for defined tasks. The conference room required minor adjustments, water glasses filled, presentation remote tested, temperature lowered to combat the crowd warmth. Other assistants performed similar rituals, their movements a choreographed dance of invisible labor. Almost done, Dana appeared with her own armload of materials. Can't wait to get home. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.